the very beginning is the earliest that most of us start our religious formation, which was in school. I was in Lutheran schools from kindergarten on and brought to church from little up. And Lutheranism was really what I knew. It was ingrained in the family, in our friends. My father was a church organist for the Lutheran Church. And going to Lutheran schools, it was Lutheran all day and Lutheran on Sunday.
I remember, because I was brought up Lutheran also, that you almost think of yourself as Lutheran as opposed to Christian.
Yes.
You really
are
certainly.
Lutheran. I would not have labeled myself a Christian maybe ever until I was a married woman and started really seeking around and looking around and saying, Lutheranism is starting to change, which has even happened more so now in recent days. But as I saw that changing, I would look into other things, Episcopal, fundamentalist, charismatic, evangelical, different names and labels, what everybody else was marketing. And at that point, maybe I would have said to some people if they asked me, well, I was raised Lutheran, but I'm Christian. But all my life, it was Lutheran
you certainly
first.
would have, just to make sure we don't misrepresent Lutherans. Lutherans obviously are Christians. That's not the question. But in terms, often I remember as a Lutheran, that meant to me my identity as a Christian as opposed to just Christianity in general.
Yeah.
And you
and
really
there was
saw
a certain
yourself as a Lutheranism.
pride of place there, a certain, that's what we were, and pride in the figure of Martin Luther. I went to a high school called Martin Luther High School, and there was a certain pride. You don't get more Lutheran than that when you're going to Martin Luther High School. Yeah. And so that's really what it was all about for me. And I loved liturgy for that reason. I was very accustomed to church done liturgically with 2 readings and communion. And that was what I knew and
singing
what I loved.
Clean Heart, O God, every Sunday,
absolutely.
Right? That was a big part. I remember that as a child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When you look back at yourself as a young woman, were you a believing, praying?
I was very devout from a very young age, almost preternaturally devout. My 5th grade teacher, Miss McGrath, told my mother, and now these are the things that are sort of prefigurements where you look back before your conversion, and she said to my mother, it's too bad there's no such thing as nuns in the Lutheran Church, because your little girl at 10 is so devout and so dedicated already. And I remember, even before that, maybe my daughter's age now, 7, 8 years old, really sitting in church and welling up with emotion early on and just saying, this is for me. This is it. I just never doubted, all through, from little to today, never doubted Jesus, the package surrounding that, always just a feeling that carried me through everything. So I was definitely gifted with a strong faith, and for a reason, because later on in life I was really going to need that for some things that ended up happening.
Now, in your unique Lutheran upbringing, again, I remember my own, though, was it in comparison to other Christian groups? Was that a part of your formation? So you understood your Lutheranism versus other Protestant groups? And particularly, what about in relationship to the Catholic Church?
Yes, I was really taught, and not in a hostile way, but taught that Lutherans were true Protestants. We protested against the Catholic Church and indulgences and corruption and not being allowed to read the Bible. And so now we were great.
So more of a matter of fact.
Yeah, it was just the way it was.
Historical, this is the way you understood history.
And I understood that there weren't Catholics running around now selling indulgences in the streets. I didn't think this was still, this medieval group out to get me. But and I was really never anti-Catholic. It just didn't come into my line of sight. Really in my peripheral vision did it exist as a thing, as a phenomenon.
Or something to join.
It never would have occurred to me, honestly, and didn't occur to me even at times in my life when I would church shop.
Did you have Catholic friends? You grew up in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the area you
Yep. I knew a lot of Catholics, but many were lapsed Catholics, cafeteria Catholics, lukewarm Catholics. And even to date, I would say I've had more anti-Catholicism thrown at me from Catholics sadly, and it pains me to say that now as a Catholic woman and a Catholic mom, than any other group, really saying to me, well, you'll see, this is why they lose people, and this is a doctrine that no one can accept, or, well, this is hypocrisy, and things like that. But the Protestants I knew were not particularly anti-Catholic. It just didn't really come onto the radar. Other than learning that history that we spoke about a few minutes ago, it really didn't come onto the radar. Our Lutheran school would compete in sports against some Catholic schools. They were kids, we were kids. It really didn't come onto the radar at all. And then when you started dating life, maybe it came a little bit onto the radar. Well, is he a Lutheran? Is that a Lutheran boy that you're dating? And that was really about it.